How to look after your knives. First of all, let's have a look at the types of knives you come across in the hospitality industry, the basic knives. You have your chef's knife, and the chef's knife has to have just the right weight, has to have the right depth and the right length for you. You have to feel comfortable holding the knife. So you have the back of the blade, you have the knife edge, you have the tip and the point of the blade, and you have the shaft that goes through the handle, and this is the heel of the blade. And the heel of the blade can be used for cutting through things like bones and heavy duty things. You use the tip for some of that fine cutting, and the centre for a lot of chopping. And you have to look after your knife well. I'm going to show you in a moment how to sharpen your knife. This is the bread knife, serrated edge, and used for cutting bread and also for cutting cake. And we have this very flexible knife. It's a lot thinner when you look at it compared with the chef's knife. It's a lot narrower. And this is the filleting knife. It has to be flexible for cutting along through when you're cutting the flesh off fish. And so it's very important knife for doing any sort of filleting jobs. And then we have the boning knife, which is cut in so you can cut around the bones, cut the flesh away from bones on various meats and chicken and that sort of thing. You also have the meat cleaver. This is just a small one. This one is often used for chopping through bones. This is just a small version of it. And another knife that's good for doing that is the east-west knife, which is a combination of the meat cleaver and the chef's knife. And we also have the paring knife. Does many of the jobs that the chef's knife does when you want to do the smaller jobs. Very good for peeling and for cutting really small things. And then this is the turning knife, this beak-like knife for doing things like shaping vegetables, like doing turned potatoes and turned mushrooms and small shaping work. And of course, when you have a knife set, you also do need your cook's fork. So you need to have a good edge on your knife. It needs to be nice and sharp. A blunt knife is very dangerous because it will slip on your food, particularly when you have more dense foods like carrots. If you don't have a sharp enough knife, you will actually cut yourself. So when you're chopping, you should always use the claw hold on your food, and as you chop, you move your fingers back as you chop, and never stick your fingers out. And when you're chopping other foods like this, if you do need your knife to help steady, always have your fingers up. So to keep an edge on the knife, this is a Crumben knife block, and the sharpening stone, and you can see there's two levels, a bit like an emery board has a rough side and a smooth side, or the same with the sharpening stone. You can use oil or water. I prefer water because oil tends to clog them up, and they get an awful smell when they get older and the oil goes rancid. So, and there are other types of stones as well, but this is the stone I'm using. So this is for sharpening to get the edge on the knife. Now to sharpen the knife, you start at the heel and you curve around to the point, one to back. I'm just going to put a bit more water on my paper towel so that it doesn't slip on me.
So why do you do it with a curving kind of motion?
To get the whole of the blade in. So the whole of the blade is sharpened and to have even pressure. So just heel to tip, heel to tip. And you might see the edge there where I've been sharpening along the edge. Now, you've got to make sure that there's no ridges. If you sharpen only on one side, you'll actually get a ridge. So you've got to make sure that there's no ridge there. When you have completed that, that's when you want to get a really, really good edge, particularly if it's gone a bit blunt. you turn over to the finer side. Again, use water because of the friction, and so you're making the edge a little finer now on this knife. And then when you've done that, you need to use the steel. So you can see the angle that I'm at there, which is about 20 degrees. The steel is designed for you to hold here. These are the safety part. This is the safety part to stop the knife slipping onto your hand. Some people like to go down like that. If you sharpen like that, holding like that, or you can hold it up like that, heel to tip, heel to tip. It's a honing of the knife. This is for sharpening. The steel is for sharpening. The block stone is for sharpening. The steel is for honing. So when you are cooking, whenever you're chopping, you don't have to have all your knives there. You only need the knives that you need, but you should have your steel close by. So every time you finish some sort of chopping activity, that you give your knife a few little goes on the steel to keep the edge in. Now, because when you're doing that, you're actually taking metal off the edge of the knife and also off the stone and off the steel, you should wash your knife. And when you wash, always have the blade away from you. And then dry it well. Again, with the sharp edge of the blade pointing away from you. And then, after you do that, you can check your what you've done. See if you've got a good edge. Just put this paper towel underneath to give me the suction that's needed. And you can get something a bit like this basil. You can just try cutting a few leaves of basil, or you could use, if you've got a vegetable handy or something like that, and you will soon find out if it's cutting through. And I'm not putting any pressure, and that is chiffonade of basil is occurring without using any force whatsoever. And I'm barely touching and barely using any force to do that cutting. So it's nice and sharp and ready for me to use for my next activity.